Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Kelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 56 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we're discussing chapter 55 of A Game of Thrones. That's Cat 8.
As always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we'll provide you with some entertainment along our way.
We'll summarise what's happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the TV show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some reader mail. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll give you a bit of extra information, which will be useful if you're not reading along with us. How are you, sir?
I am okay. How about you?
We've been chatting for a while before this started, so normally this is kind of spontaneous, but we've actually just had a kind of a long chat, so we've worn it all out. But both of us are having kind of bad weeks, basically.
Yeah, it's not been a banner week, that's for sure.
Yes.
Do you want to hear a puzzling story?
Do.
Okay. So Saturday morning, I was making the bed, and I took Stacy's pillows off and I put them next to her nightstand. And I was making the bed, and I went to put the pillows back up, and I was like, she was like brushing her teeth or something, and I was like, do you know, why is your iPad in the pillowcase? And she was like, what? It's not in the pillowcase. She thought I was like punking her, and I was like, what kind of joke is that? Like, oh, I put your pillow in the pillowcase, and then I found it. So anyway, she was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I put it back on her nightstand and put her pillows up and went about her day. And then that night, so we went to bed, she turned the light off, and like just before I fell asleep, so the lights had probably been off for 5 minutes, I hear a thud, and she said to me, was that you? And I said, no, was that you? And she was like, no. And so she reaches over, turns the light on, and that iPad, the same one that had ended up in the pillowcase, she had placed on top of a book on her nightstand. The book was very securely on the nightstand. It wasn't like teetering on the edge. That iPad was at least 2 feet away on the floor. And, you know, I'm a pretty rational guy. I'm about as rational a person as you can find. And I could not think of what could have caused that. I was up till 3:45, not because I was like terrified of like the real ghosts of Harrenhal, but like I could not rationalize. Every time I start to fall asleep, I'd be like, but how? How did it end up there?
Did it have like a spring-loaded pop socket that suddenly triggered, flew across the room?
I could not. The best I could come up with was, both air conditioning vents in the room are on that side. I thought maybe the air conditioning kicked on. She said she turns it face down because it's technically Molly's iPad, and if her friends are texting, and it will light up and, you know, wake us up. So she kept it face down, which is the slicker side, you know, that the AC turned on, enough air force slid it off the book and onto the floor. So I practiced that the next morning. Could not for the life of me get it down. I was like, come on, man, move.
Does your manager know what you get up to during the day?
That was a Sunday morning. So.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Anyway, so
that is quite something. I don't know what to say. It seems like there's a ghost. I always remember hearing someone say something about how technology would appear if you saw technology from like 200 years in advance of where you were, it would look like magic.
Yeah.
You know, so someone 200 years ago would see the iPad itself as magic. Maybe yours literally is, you know.
The iPad is magic. I will say it's never done such thing before, and it has not had a chance since because it's now placed on the floor directly.
Right. Call me back when it jumps up onto the book.
So, anyway, if any of our listeners have any ideas as to what might have happened, please let me know.
Well, I got nothing to compare to that, but we have a lot of notes here, so let's get down to business. A quick recap of what Kat was up to last time we saw her. It's been a while since we've seen Kat. Last we saw of her, she was watching in despair as Bronn defeated Savardis Egan in Tyrion's trial by combat. Her hostage and trump card, well, only card, was free to leave the Eyrie, and so she did too. With her uncle Brynden Blackfish Tully and the ever-faithful Sir Rodrik Cassel, she was planning to head east towards the coast and from there take a ship to White Harbour in the north, and from there on to Winterfell and her sons. Why don't we give them the summary?
Okay. So Cat the Blackfish and the 1,500-strong army of the Manderleys spy the banners of the great northern host as they head south through the misty weather. Moat Cailin slowly comes into view. Cat spies the banners of all the northern lords and is encouraged. Brynden, on the other hand, is dismayed by how dilapidated Moat Cailin is. Cat reassures him that it is more secure than it appears, which would be hard to be less secure than it appears.
We get a description of the 3 towers that still stand, and banners fly on each, with Stark the only pennant on the gatehouse tower. They head that way. Cat describes the way the defences work. The only tower that isn't in the bog is the gatehouse, and to attack that, you face onslaught from above from all 3 towers. Plus you're wading through lizard-lion-infested swamps. Brynden decides he's glad he's there by invitation.
Yep. She finds Robb holding court with the bannermen. Greywind is the first to notice her, and he trots over and nibbles on her fingers affectionately. The bannerman grows silent, and Robb cries, "Mother!" She resists the urge to run into his arms. One by one, the lords and Theon do her homage, and she explains her route and introduces Sir Wendell Manderley.
Cat explains the absence of Sir Rodrik. She sent him north from White Harbour on learning of Robb's march, so that there could be a proper Castellan in Winterfell. Luwin makes a good administrator, but if defence was needed, she wants someone competent. Roose Bolton asks about Tyrion the Imp. Oh, by the way, I typed that while I was watching my beloved Oldham Athletic play against Lincoln City, whose nickname is the Imps.
Get out.
I was literally doing 2 things at once, and that happened. And get out, Oldham won. It was a pre-season friendly, but Oldham won 2-1. So yes, Roose Bolton asks about the Imps, and Cat explains how she lost him to general consternation.
Cat took our advice and offered to foster Robert Arryn at Winterfell, and that was not well received by Lysa. And the girls went their separate ways on very bad terms. No help can be expected from the Vale. The lords are understandably perturbed, but Cat turfs them out so she can have some alone time with her son. They still resist the urge to just cling to one another, but despite their restraint, the scene is still sweet, and she comments on his newly grown beard. Robb fears that she may send him home, but she recognizes that that would forever taint him in the eyes of the men who will be his bannermen in the future. And if things don't pick up for Ned rather rapidly, that may be very soon.
Robb asks if she knows of Ned's plight. She had heard it from Lord Manderley, who of course knew of it because that's why the banners were being called, was because Ned had been taken captive.
Right. Yeah.
She has not received the letter that was sent to her from Sansa. Robb shows her his letter. They agree it really is from Cersei, and both try to ignore the absence of Arya in the letter. Robb confesses to being unsure of what to do, but Cat walks him through the problem and helps him find his way.
He's afraid that if they win, Ned and Sansa will die, and Cat shares his fear, but he can't go to King's Landing, nor can he retreat, so the only way at this point is forward. The best hope is a battle in which he can capture a prized Lannister asset with whom they can bargain, such as how she had Tyrion at one point. She asks for an update.
That would have been useful.
It would have. She asks for an update. The Lannisters, led by Jaime, have come down from the Golden Tooth. Lord Vance was killed, and Piper had to retreat to Riverrun. Worse news is of a second Lannister army led by Tywin attacking from the south.
Robb thinks that Ned sent Beric Dondarrion against that force. Tywin attacked them, ignoring the king's banners. The Dondarrion crew was annihilated, although some might have escaped. Reports are confused as to how it actually finished. Tywin controls the King's Road and is heading north towards Harrenhal, burning as he goes. The Riverlands are badly outmatched, and the North must join them if they're not to be wiped out.
Where to, asks Cat. Straight south against Tywin, or across the Green Fork to join up with the Tullys at Riverrun and oppose Jaime? Robb reckons that he must split his force. The foot soldiers go south down the King's Road. Tywin must engage that force, which means Tywin goes north up the east bank of the Green Fork to meet the foot soldiers. So there is a 400 plus miles where he can't cross back again until the twins, held by the Freys, who happen to be owe their fealty to Riverrun.
Meanwhile, the mounted men will cross at the Twins, travel west of the Green Fork, and attack Jaime. Robb will lead this force. He intends Umber to lead the other, but Cat suggests the more cunning Roose Bolton. Robb says that he'll arrange for escort for her back to Winterfell, but she says that she must visit her family in Riverrun.
Yeah.
So, not an awful lot happens in this chapter, but there's a lot of very useful exposition about the battles that are brewing.
Yeah. And I found the stuff going on in the Riverlands like this to be really confusing the first time that I read through this story. So we're going to try and help keep things straight for you guys.
Well, when we get to pedantry, you'll notice that I have still some confusion, because some of it doesn't make a lot of sense. I got the map, I got the words, they don't gel together.
They don't gel.
But Kat finally gets to see a loved one. It's been a while.
Yeah,
I mean, she didn't even see the girls, did she, when she went to King's Landing? She only saw Ned. Yeah. So she's been a while since she's seen a child.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. But sir, so the first thing, that we meet her, and she's seeing the banners at Moat Cailin, and then we're introduced to Willis and Wendell Manderly, who are brothers, and they're technically Sir Willis and Sir Wendell. And I know that they're middle-aged. Kat mentions that they're older than she is, and I assume she's in her late 30s or mid-30s or so. So, there's some midsection expansion to be expected. But
I don't know what you're talking about.
She refers to these knights as so large they can hardly sit a horse. And so I'm not sure how useful they'd be in actual battle, but maybe they're really great commanders and leaders of men.
Who's the younger? Willis is the younger.
Willis is the younger. Mac jumping in here real quick during editing. Nope. Wendell is the younger brother, not Willis. Sorry about that. Anyway, back to the show.
Yeah. So she says that Willis would be the fattest man she'd ever seen had she not just met his brother and father. So
right.
They are two of the three fattest people she's ever met. So.
Yeah. And I thought maybe that their horses needed to be knighted for bravery, because she says she pities the poor animals for having to carry Willis specifically. And of course they're here because their father, Wyman, is too heavy to even get on a horse, period. So
right, yeah. There comes a time in a man's life when he must, set aside the frivolous things and just get down to serious eating.
He says, if I had expected to see war in my lifetime again, I would have had a few less eels.
So Kat is noted by scouts, and she's happy to see scouts north of the army as well as south. Obviously, there's no great threat from the north, but it's better to be careful.
Yeah, it's definitely good that he's covering his bases. I mean, there's no obvious threats to the east or west. The Narrow Sea is to the east, the Iron Islands are to the west, and with Theon Greyjoy being what appears to be Robb's closest friend and Ned Stark's ward, you would think they would be pretty safe from a Greyjoy attack, but of course, you never know with the Ironborn. Reaving is in their nature. If they catch wind of a depleted north,
yeah,
you never know.
But equally a depleted west. I mean,
yeah.
if Tywin's got two different armies heading into the Riverlands, he can't have left much of a garrison back at Casterly Rock. And let's be honest, if you wanted to reave somewhere, Winterfell versus Casterly Rock, I'd choose Casterly Rock.
Solid point.
Take some gold, my friend.
Another thing they could be, keeping eye out for is Lannisport and Casterly Rock are both on the west coast, so they could send a small fleet north up the west coast to take a lightly defended Winterfell, and then that would put a real strain on Robb to.
Oh, you don't mean the Lannisters could. I was going to say, yeah. But do they have much of a navy, the Lannisters? I guess you wouldn't need that much of a navy to do that.
Lannisport's a big port town. They have a pretty decent navy. They wouldn't need a huge navy if they just need some troops. I mean, we saw Winterfell. It's basically Bran and Hodor.
Right.
So,
and really, I mean, that's all Hodor. Really, just get him.
Yeah, right. He'd have to throw Bran at them in defense.
Yeah. But yeah, so then it does make you wonder if it wasn't for Theon's presence, would the Greyjoys be sniffing around this situation like, there's opportunity here?
Right, if they caught wind of it. Now, we remember that it wasn't that long ago that Ned and Robert had to come together and smash the Greyjoy rebellion. And that's how Theon ended up becoming Ned's ward. So, they're not the biggest Ned Stark fans on the Iron Islands.
So Moat Cailin is supposed to be this great impregnable fortress a la the bloody gate into the Vale. I'm not seeing it, I've got to say. So we talked about it before, it just doesn't seem as impregnable as the bloody gate, because yes, you've got to go kind of like single file because the road is narrow and the swamp on either side. But there's just these 3 dilapidated towers. It feels like if I had siege towers, which I'm thinking in my imagination of my army marching north, it has considerable siege towers.
You think?
I throw some burning pitch and oil into those 3 towers, I'm going to chase out the people who are in there pretty quickly.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Especially the Drunkard's Tower, they mention it's leaning like a man who's about to spew a belly full of wine. So you wouldn't think it would take that much effort to put a dent in it, and then you've got 2 towers, and you would also think that siege engines, maybe they can only fit 1 on the King's road in that part, but you think it could throw further than an arrow. So
I believe
you stay
that's
back
probably
far enough out of arrow range and just keep throwing stuff at it,
Yeah.
I certainly see what you're saying. Moat Cailin, this is what I was thinking while I was reading this, because Kat is explaining to Brynden, Blackfish Tully, her uncle, like he says, "Oh my, this is Moat Cailin. This is
now I fancy my chances."
And she explains that it's stronger than it looks, and kings of old have been able to throw back armies 10 times their size here. And I thought, if it's such of a strategic importance to the northern defense, why not put some effort into rebuilding it?
Good point.
Now, one difference is when it was built, the neck might not have been swampy area. We'll find out why. It has to do with what the Children of the Forest did in the 3rd tower we haven't mentioned, which is the Children's Tower. And so I get it, it's now swamp area, but there's got to be something you can do to help improve it,
Yeah. So, one thing I noticed actually, one character that got dropped is Marillion, the singer.
True.
I guess he got left behind in the Vale, so.
Yeah, or maybe he stayed at White Harbor. It's the only city in the north, so maybe he thought he could make some money there.
Oh. So White Harbor is bigger than Winterfell?
White Harbor is the only true city. It's small. It's the smallest of what they consider the 5 cities of Westeros, but it is smaller than Winterfell, I mean, it's all the way around. It's larger than Winterfell.
Yeah.
But we don't know where he went. Maybe he's there and they just haven't mentioned him.
So Kat gets to Robb and she wants to run up and kiss him and wrap him in her arms. Given that all of his liege lords are there in the room, she restrains herself.
Wise choice, Kat. These are not southern softies here. We're talking about the hard, battle-ready lords of the north here.
Exactly. Yeah. So, what do we think of the decision to send Sir Rodrik Cassel back to Winterfell? Given what you just said, I'm thinking it's the right move. Because I was thinking it might be unnecessary. Winterfell's so far away from the action here that it would be impregnable. But it would be the kind of sort of like token victory that someone could sort of celebrate. And it would split the northern forces, because probably if Winterfell fell, you would send forces back to deal with that.
That would definitely cause a problem. Yeah. I feel like there's one of two options here. Obviously, there's one of two options. Either Cat goes to Winterfell and Rodrik goes to Robb, or the way they did it here. Cat goes to Robb and so Rodrik goes to Winterfell. And, so you presume that Sir Rodrik has some military strategy knowledge. He is the master at arms. You'd think he would have some knowledge of such things. So maybe he'd be able to advise Robb as well, if not better than Cat, in military strategy.
But he's got a lot of people. He's got a lot of voices already.
He does. Yeah, that was the other thing I was going to say, is Cat would have a greater influence over Robb. So,
But then again, if you're worried about Robb's tactical nous, going there and overruling the people who've got tactical experience is probably not the right thing to do anyway.
Yeah, solid point. But I certainly imagine that Bran and Rickon would prefer their mother come to Winterfell. And Rodrik go to Robb. And also I wondered if maybe Winterfell would seem stronger with Lady Stark in charge. She would carry more weight in her decisions.
But perhaps literally not be as strong, because she would not be able to marshal the troops should defense be required, as well as... But, okay, I'll give you an alternative. Why don't they both just go back to Winterfell? I mean, Robb doesn't need them. He doesn't need either of them, really.
Yeah, he wasn't expecting them, Yeah.
So. And that way you've got both. You've got, a Stark in Winterfell who's actually a grown-up. Right. And you've got a guy who can organise the defences if needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder if, if you think about Cat, getting back to Bran and Rickon, probably...
We can't forget Rickon. If we forget Rickon, nobody will remember he exists.
I would just think that as a mother, she would be more excited to get back to those two than to see Robb.
Yeah, sure. Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe Robb's her favourite.
Speaking of mothers, the parting of the sisters, the parting of the Tully sisters did not go well at the Eyrie, because Cat dared to suggest that she foster Robert at Winterfell. Her theory was strong. The company of other boys would do him good. It certainly couldn't do him any harm.
Nope. Well, that's not true. Rickon could do him some harm, I feel sure.
Rickon will get that kid whipped into shape in no time.
The kind of harm that long-term would do him good, I think, is the point.
Short-term pain, long-term gain. Yeah, Liza's line is, "Sister or no, if you try to steal my son, you'll leave by the moon door." So, and then she said, "But have safe travels. Here's some refreshments for the road, and give my love to the family." No, she did not say anything. Yeah, so we've been well aware that she will put up quite a fight to anyone trying to separate the pair of her and her son.
Which then goes back to the theory that you mooted earlier, that she's a suspect in the Jon Arryn murder.
Well, she just threatened to throw her own sister out the moon door if she tried to separate them. She ran from King Robert when he was going to have him fostered at Casterly Rock. So I'm just saying, I don't think she would have been pleased by the idea of Jon Arryn fostering Robert at Dragonstone with Stannis.
Yeah. So Robb's still only 15, and Cat explains that he must be able to understand why she's afraid for him, going into what he's going into. But I think you've made the point that Jon's done really good things at 15, but he's also done incredibly rash and stupid things.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly the thing. It's like, Robb, just like Jon, is probably prone to some really great ideas. They're both very smart, and they've been well trained by Ned and probably Maester Luwin with things of intellect, and by Rodrik Cassel with things of fighting nature and stuff like that. But then they're also, they're 15-year-old boys. They're prone to, what were you thinking? What was that? Yeah. So that's not ideal to have your battle commander be a 15-year-old boy.
But a 15-year-old boy, well advised, who's wise enough to listen to good advice, that's probably not a bad situation.
It's definitely better than a 15-year-old boy who thinks he knows everything and doesn't want to listen to anyone.
Amen.
So, Kat even suggests that Robb could have given command to any of the men, as she puts it, who just left, she just booted out of the room here, including Theon. Robb's defense is, but they're not Starks. And she says, but they're men, Robb. They're battle-tested men. And I thought, well, so how old is Theon then? We've never really gotten that information. So I looked it up. He's somewhere between 19 and 20-ish.
Okay.
So he's 4 to 5 years older than...
Doesn't feel like he's very battle-tested. He's no more battle-tested than Jon, you know.
Right.
I mean, he's had a slightly rougher childhood, being abducted by the Starks, basically, but they looked after him. They didn't treat him like a servant. They treated him like one of their children, you know.
Right, yeah, exactly. As far as we know, the first time Robb killed anyone was when he put that arrow through Stiv to free Bran in Wolf's Woods.
The first time Theon killed anyone, yeah.
Yeah, what did I say?
I think you might have given that to Robb.
Okay, I meant It's a trend with me.
Yeah.
Calling people by their wrong names.
Some character in the book. Later, when Robb says he was thinking of giving command of the infantry force to the great John Umber, Kat thinks that's a mistake. I'm not so sure. The man's 8 feet tall and laughs when a wolf bites his hand off.
That's Robb's argument too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I do see the value of putting Roose Bolton in charge because he does seem like a thinker.
Yeah. I just wonder, this conversation comes up later, but she mentions that the Great John is fearless and that Ned was not fearless. Ned was brave, and there's a difference between the two things. And she said you'd rather have someone cunning, and then he suggests Roose Bolton. And I thought, but you should also have loyalty in there, shouldn't you? I mean, this person is leading your army in your name. You know, you've got to be able to make sure they are loyal to you first and foremost.
But I think these lords have shown pretty good loyalty already. I mean, they've all left their home, marshaled their troops, and now dragged them into the Riverlands to fight a force that hasn't attacked them because the child of this force has imprisoned their lord in response to their lady imprisoning a child of I'm just saying. So I would say that all of the lords of the North are showing pretty good loyalty right this second.
That's true. At this second, it's just this person's going to go off and really be the only thing separating Tywin's host and the North, aside from Moat Cailin.
So they read the letter that Sansa sent, the one she sent to Robb, which he has in his possession. He also he said he also received the one for Kat, but he never read it and didn't bring it.
Yes,
so,
right.
So maybe that was different, but I assume not.
It also answers the question of where did they send the letter to Kat, because we wondered that at the time. Kat's traveling. Where are you sending this letter to? They just sent it to Winterfell.
Yeah. They understand that there's a threat in there, that Sansa's a hostage, they're going to keep her, and Robb hoped that they could trade Tyrion for the hostages. I wonder if a 1-for-3 deal would have worked with the Lannisters, especially with Cersei, because she's not very fond of Tyrion. Yeah,
I was going to say, I don't know that they would have gotten any of those 3 pieces for Tyrion.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know that Cersei would have thought highly enough of Tyrion to give up one of her pieces to get him back, one of her hostages.
Yeah, but Tywin might.
Maybe. We have not met Tywin to know their father-son relationship, but what we've heard
isn't the best.
Yeah.
But hey, here they are. Jaime and Tywin are in the field fighting because Tyrion was taken captive. So they're not. I think
it's probably more of a slap to the Lannister name than because of their fear for Tyrion's safety. Yeah.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
But But the thing is, from the Starks' point of view, if they were able to capture Tywin, say, then the Starks would want 3 for 1 because you can't trade your only trump card for just one of their trump cards.
Right.
You've got to trade it. It's got to be all for all, no matter how many you catch.
Yeah, good point.
But
Cat tells Robb that Lysa is not stirring beyond her bloody gate, and he takes it pretty hard. He starts to tear up, and he has to turn his face away because he doesn't want to see he doesn't want his mom to see him crying, and he's basically, she sees him as just a child looking to his mom for answers, and she's like, this won't do. This guy has designated himself battle commander. He can't be crying and looking at me for answers. So
yeah, but you know what? It's a cause and effect thing. He wouldn't be there crying if it wasn't for the fact he was alone with his mother. You know?
Right. Yeah.
When you're alone with your mother, you revert to childhood. You know, we're all the same.
Yeah, I definitely hear you. I get where you're coming from. So she asks him, Robb, what's your big fear? What are you so worried about? And I think he says the obvious. Whether they win or lose, it doesn't matter. Their Stark family members are going to be killed.
Yeah, we talked about this, whether or not there was a chance of a peaceful resolution, whether or not it was possible to go to King's Landing and say, hey, look, Tyrion's free, we let him go, we gave him a trial by combat, he won fair and square, we accept you as the new king, please let our family go. And the
cat says something that I found odd, and I guess there's probably a bunch of ways you can interpret it, but she says to him, basically says, you don't have a choice. If you go to King's Landing and swear fealty, you'll never be allowed to leave. And I'm not exactly sure where she's getting that from. Is she saying that, he goes there, pledges his fealty, and they will detain him as well or kill him? It feels like if the new Lord of the North, or acting Lord of the North, pledges his fealty to Joff, it would be a way to end this war and save a lot of stress and a lot of lives.
Yeah, I think she's got legitimate fears, though. Like her betrothed and his father went to King's Landing to pledge their fealty to the king, and they didn't come back.
Yeah, I wondered that too. Yeah,
and then Ned and Sansa and Arya went down there, and they didn't come back. So
yeah,
but I think you're right. I think it is a baseless fear because I think that would be enough for the Lannisters.
Yeah.
If Cat and Robb came down, pled fealty, and Ned pled fealty, they'd let them go. Why not?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Better that than stirring up long-term trouble by doing something to them.
Yeah. I was wondering if maybe they would hold him and then appoint a new Lord Paramount to the north, and then
a non-Stark.
Right. Maybe strip the Starks of that title for penance for crimes against the throne.
Yeah.
But then she says, the other option is go home, turn around and run back home. And she said that's no good either, because the Northern Lords will lose respect for you, and some of them maybe even will go over to the Lannisters. And if that happens, Cersei might kill the family.
And how does going home get Ned back?
Yeah. I'm not sure about that. Some of them going over to the Lannisters thing. I think maybe some of them might lose their respect for Robb. But that they would...
and certainly they wouldn't fight to save the Riverlands without Robb there to.
Right. Yeah.
These aren't our lands,
That's all the point. Yeah.
Oh, and I think the other thing that makes Kat worry is what she remembers of Rhaegar's children. She mentions Rhaegar's children here, that the Lannisters aren't afraid to butcher children.
Yeah. Right.
To get their own way. But it's not like the Starks have a claim to the throne. If the Starks bend the knee, then that's it, right? Because they have no claim to the throne.
That's how I see it.
They may always dislike Joffrey, but doesn't necessarily mean they're so far away.
Yeah, let them go.
You never have to think of them again.
Right, let them go do their northern thing. Yeah. That's how I would see it, but I am not Cersei and Joffrey. Yeah, you're right. She says to him, if you lose, there's no hope for any of us. And then she says, there's naught but stone at the heart of Casterly Rock. remember the fate of Rhaegar's children.
Right.
And when I read that, I was reminded about back in Cat 2 when she was all for and very excited about the prospect of Sansa marrying into the family. That she's now saying there's nothing but stone at the heart of that family, and remember what they allowed to happen to Rhaegar's kids.
Well, but she believed at the time that it was Robert's son.
Yes, marrying into half into the family.
Exactly, she's marrying into the Baratheon family, not the Lannister family. Yeah. Now it seems more and more it's the Lannister family she would be marrying into. So, so they talk a lot at length about the battle plans. So we know that both Casterly Rock and Riverrun have called all their banners.
Yes.
The armies gathered in the pass below the Golden Tooth. On the Riverrun side, Raymond Darry, Mark Piper, Carl Vance were all in the throne room when Ned sent Beric Dondarrion, right?
Yeah, they were the ones that came and told Ned and explained what happened in those 3 towns. And but in this chapter, they mention the Lords Vance and Piper. Those are not the knights from Ned 11.
Right.
Those are their fathers. Okay. Edmure sent Mark and Carl away from the army to go defend those towns and figure out.
The fathers were still in the Riverlands fighting, or at least trying to hold the Lannisters at bay.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you recall at the time, I can't remember which one it was, said that Edmure had sent men to every village and Holdfast within a day's ride of the border to help protect these towns that Gregor was pillaging. And Ned thought, that's exactly what Tywin is wanting you to do, I bet. Spread your army thin. And, as we see, that might have been exactly what happened. But then also Ned sent, if you recall in that chapter, Ned sent Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, Gladden Wild, and Lord Lothar Mallory, in a total of 100 men. 20 from each of them and 20 of his own, because he loves to give his household guard away.
Check.
So that's the background of everything that happens now in this chapter.
Yeah. So Lords Vance and Piper were supposed to hold the pass below the Golden Tooth. Jaime outnumbered and defeated them. Not enough people in that army, partly because Edmure stripped it to protect all of the border towns. Yep. Lord Vance was killed. Piper fell back to Riverrun, where he joined Edmure Tully. Jaime at his heels. Tywin comes from the south. There he meets Beric Dondarrion's 100-man force at Mummer's Ford, which is a crossing of the Red Fork. Beric tries to pull back across the Red Fork, and he runs into Gregor Clegane's company coming the other way. So basically, the people that Ned sent to bring Clegane to justice were annihilated.
Yep, and Robb says that most of the Stark men were killed. And if you remember, Alan was leading that group of Stark men. Alan was the captain of guard that replaced Jory. So, and then now, he says, Tywin is blocking the King's Road and traveling north to Harrenhal. Now, like you alluded to earlier, a lot of this doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you look at the map. But one thing that I was thinking about is that we have to keep in mind this is from Robb's perspective. He doesn't know that Ned sent Beric to track Clegane. So it's possible that Beric never faced Tywin's army. Maybe he was told Beric faced a force south of the Golden Tooth and assumed it was Tywin's army, not knowing that Gregor had a third separate force. And so maybe Tywin and his army went further south than where Gregor was, straight to the King's Road to block it off, and then started north to Harrenhal, which also removes Tywin from any stain of whatever Gregor is up to. And also the stain of attacking the King's banners. Exactly. Well. Yes, exactly. It did sound like they were getting reports of this, though. That it sounded fairly concrete, but of course, I mean, people make extrapolations from what they hear, you know. Yeah, he says at the very beginning of this, or somewhere in this, he says the letter said, but we never know. We're not told who the letter was from, right. And we don't know what the letter contained. So, like you just said, this might be some inferences that he's making based on the letter, because he thought that Ned must have sent that army Beric Dondarrion north. Yeah, and the letter writer might have made inferences of their own from sketchy information, you know. Exactly. So that might be why a lot of this doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
So Clegane is obviously not going to get brought to justice. And just thinking back, so Loras Tyrell might count himself lucky he wasn't chosen for that little escapade, because it doesn't sound like it ended very well.
No, it doesn't. He owes Ned a debt of gratitude, I think, for that one. But Robb mentions that he's sent a letter to Howland Reed. If you recall, Howland Reed was the lone survivor of Ned and his friends' battle at the Tower of Joy with the 3 Knights of the Kingsguard, to where his sister Lyanna was being held.
The lone other survivor, because I think Ned got through that one.
Yes, exactly. He was the lone survivor that isn't Ned.
Gotcha, got it.
And Robb says that Howland's Crannog men will bleed the Lannisters if they come up through the neck and try and attack the north. Now,
so the neck would be north of the Twins,
yes,
and south of Moat Cailin?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Well,
just checking.
Moat Cailin is kind of in the northern part of the neck.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you.
So in the first Ned chapter and in the 10th Ned chapter, we talked about Howland Reed, and he's the Lord of Greywater Watch, and Greywater Watch is built on a Crannog, which is a floating island in the swamps of Moat Cailin, and it can't be found by outsiders or ravens. So just to refresh your memory on who Howland Reed is.
Yeah. So Lords Glover and Bolton say that Tywin's too smart to get stuck in the neck anyway. He's going to stay in the Riverlands and pick off the castles until Riverrun is alone. So Robb has to go south to meet him. And that certainly makes sense. I mean, why try to invade your opponent when you can just harry and steal from his relatives?
Yep. Especially since the Riverland troops are scattered and possibly too thin to resist.
So then we get to Robb's decision. So basically, he's got 2 forces to fight against. He's got 1 force. Keep that 1 force together to try and overwhelm those 2 forces one by one, or split up his force to face them both. It's a toughie. I mean, I think the typical warrior ideals would be to not split up your force.
Right.
But they are causing mayhem, and they are scoring victories, which it would be good to stop.
Yep.
So I think the plan he's come up with possibly is good. It seems dangerous for the force he's sending to face Tywin's army. If Tywin's army is substantial and he's only sending the footmen to face it,
yeah,
it feels like that might be a suicide mission.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I wondered about that. It's something that Kat says made me wonder regarding that. But basically what he's doing is he's going to send basically a decoy army down the east side of the Green Fork, down the King's Road, hoping to draw Tywin and his army north past the Ruby Ford, which is the only place to cross the Green Fork until you get way up to the Twins.
Yes, it's where the King's Road crosses the Green Fork, right?
Yeah, and so he's got to go north to attack him, which will pin him to the east side of the Green Fork, because there's 500 miles between crossings. Which
I got to say, just a thought here. I think Tywin will engage, because I think he will.
Yep.
But just a thought here. If you send those men, so those men march down that King's Road. It's 500 miles long between the Twins and the Ruby Ford. You just leave a garrison at the Ruby Ford to fight and harry them. Tywin's army could go the other side and join up with Jaime and just complete the pillaging of the Riverlands while that army is trapped on the other side of the river.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Maybe that's part of Kat's concern about splitting the army.
For weeks on end.
Yeah.
Because 500 miles is weeks of marching, you know.
I guess what Robb is banking on is Tywin not knowing that it's the full force of the Northern Army coming down the King's Road. Right,
that banking on the fact that he thinks it is.
Yes, that he thinks is the full force of the Northern Army, and he's riding north to meet it. But So then, while that's happening, we mentioned this in the summary, Robb and the mounted force are going to cross at the Twins and come down the west bank of the Green Fork and make it to Riverrun, join up with Edmure to battle Jaime's army. So if that works as planned, it's a good idea, unless you're part of the foot infantry group, because you're kind of just being left out there to face Tywin's army by yourself.
Yeah,
So.
but I mean, if that's the plan, I mean, you get in sight of them and then you start running.
Yeah, right.
You've done your work at that point.
Run away.
Yeah.
And Cat even says, "Which are you going to lead?" to Robb, and Robb says, "I'm going to lead the mounted force," and she says, "Just like his father, taking the more dangerous option." And I was like, I don't know. I wouldn't want to be on the infantry side over there.
Yeah,
it seems like a rough draw to me.
I think he'll see more action on the mounted force on the west side of the Green Fork, but I think they'll see more "you're going to die" action on the east side of the Green Fork.
And I also thought that this plan hinges a lot on Walder Frey to allow, not cause any issues with them crossing at his twins crossing over the Green Fork.
I mean, he's the late Walder Frey. We know this. His loyalty is up for sale, but he's a bannerman of the Tullys.
Yes, and that's Robb's point.
When Robb's army and Cat Stark come and say we're heading to River Run, he's going to let them cross.
Yeah. That's exactly what Robb says when Cat says, he's the late Walder Frey for a reason. My father doesn't trust him, and neither should you. But they are trusting him. This whole plan hinges on him doing the thing he's supposed to do, which is let them cross.
But if he says no, you cross anyway. You've got an army. You're an army about to fight Jaime Lannister's army. You better be able to take Walder Frey.
Yeah, although he's embedded in his castle. So.
True. Okay, so just a comment before we move on. The lack of crossings of the Green Fork is startling. 500 miles without a crossing?
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you were entrepreneurial, you could go to the 250-mile mark and build a bridge, and you could charge a lot to cross that bridge.
Absolutely. No one's thought of this yet?
Yeah. The only thing I can think of is that the Freys are some kind of cabal that don't allow anyone to build bridges. We have the only bridge.
Yeah, that very well might be the case, because I think they like being the only crossing available until the Ruby Ford. So
yeah. And I thought it was interesting that Kat liked the direwolf, because she definitely didn't like the direwolves at first, but ever since Summer defended Bran, she's warmed to them.
Good point. Yeah, that's true.
And she also she expressed some disdain for Theon again, didn't she?
She just said you could have even named Theon as commander, but it wouldn't have been my choice. So
he always gets these barbed comments. No,
yeah.
All right, so to background, so Roose Bolton got a few mentions here. So just to remind you, he's Lord of the Dreadfort. According to this chapter, he has a small voice, colourless eyes, and his look is disturbing. Larger men are quieted when he speaks. He sounds a bit creepy.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, Robb says he scares me, and Kat says hopefully he scares Tywin too.
Yeah.
Well, one of the three towers at Moat Cailin is called the Children's Tower. So we've got the Drunkard's Tower, the Gatehouse Tower, and the Children's Tower. It was named so because it's where the children of the forest supposedly called down the Hammer of the Waters. And we've mentioned this in a previous chapter. It was one of the Vale chapters to deal with the First Men. I think it might have been the one where Tyrion was traveling back, or maybe it was Cat on her way. Either way. And we mentioned at the time that according to songs, the children used the dark magic to shatter the arm of Dorne, creating the stepstones and the broken arm. But they also managed to flood the neck into the swamp that is today, which is why I said way earlier, I understand that when Moat Cailin was built, it wasn't a swamp. It'd be harder to build on swampland, but you got to be able to reinforce it somehow. Anyway, they were doing that in an attempt to split Westeros into two separate land masses. Now, it's unclear whether this happened at the same time as the other breaking, the arm of the arm of Dorne and the stepstones breaking, or if it was a separate use of the Hammer of the Waters.
They were like, well, let's do that again.
Right. That worked the first time. Let's try it again.
So House Manderley of White Harbour is among the most powerful and loyal vassals of House Stark, as well as the richest northern family due to their control of the big city of the region, the only city in the region. Their seat is called New Castle. A rarity for northern houses, the Manderleys follow the faith of the Seven instead of the old gods. Well, they're kind of southern for northerners. They're on the southern end of the north. As the family emigrated from the Reach after the Andal invasion, the Manderleys blazon is a white merman with dark green hair, beard and tail, carrying a black trident over a blue-green field. Their words don't appear in the books, nor has Martin released them elsewhere. Manderley guards wield tridents instead of spears. The Lord of White Harbour, Wyman Manderley, influences all lands and houses east of the mouth of the White Knife. Their bannermen includes 12 petty lords and 100 landed knights.
So 100 landed knights is a pretty significant amount. It's like almost a quarter of the knights that the North has, because they only had 300 to 400 because there's not that many knights. So, Anyway, the Manderleys have kind of an interesting backstory because they're a very old house, and they made a major move, which is unusual for houses. The Manderleys once lived along the banks of the Mander River in the Reach, and some claim that the river was actually named after them. They were a noble house of great lords, and they held the castle of Duntonsbury as their seat. They had a fierce rivalry with House Peak. At some point, House Manderley overreached itself and was driven from the Reach by the Gardner Kings, who were the kings of the Reach at the time. This is pre-Targaryen era. As the Gardner Kings feared that the Manderleys were growing their influence and power in the Reach too much. So the Manderleys fled north and were welcomed as bannermen of the Starks, and the Starks tasked them with defending the White Knife in return for an oath of fealty.
That's an interesting outcome for a house that falls on, that falls out with its liege lord. And usually that's the end of the road for a house, but that's an interesting development.
There's actually a lot more. There was a whole bunch of information about House Manderley,
and yet we don't know their words.
Right, all that, but we don't know their words.
Yeah. Maybe it should be something like "Don't overreach."
That should be it.
All right. Comparison with the television show, it's just Cat and Sir Rodrik in the television show. They're not coming down with an army, it's just the two of them. Cat and Robb hug fiercely in front of everyone. They don't care. Because the TV show is just a soft child of summer compared to the book.
It is.
We get a lot of the same exposition, but some of it is put into the mouth of Tywin Lannister in a different scene. So basically the same exposition that we're getting here.
Oh.
Some of it's between Cat and Robb. Some of it is between Tywin and some people that Tywin is talking to.
Okay.
But the exposition is much the same. He does go a bit further about Jaime's successes. He actually says River Run is besieged, which I don't think we're quite at that point here in the book. I mean, it said Jaime was bearing down on River Run, but...
He's just bragging on his son a little bit.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. After the scene where Cat reads the letter, we go back to a scene where all the bannermen are back in the room. So they do have a little bit of alone time, but then the actual discussion about what the plan should be is with everybody present.
Okay.
Yeah. The scene is culminated by a spy being dragged in who's counted 20,000 men. The bannermen are all just like, yes, we're gonna execute this guy. But Robb sort of takes pity on him and lets him go. Great John Umber is not very happy with this show of softness.
I can see that.
But I have a little theory. I think Robb was saying 20,000, there's only 18,000 of us. Let's send this guy back to Tywin and scare the bejesus out of Tywin with the size of our force.
Solid point, yeah. That good strategy right there.
He doesn't say that, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, pedantry corner. I've got a one here just a little bit. It's about the defense of Moat Cailin. We're supposed to respect Brynden Blackfish Tully. He's supposed to be a smart tactician and a brave fighter. Yep. But the Cat's description of the defences of Moat Cailin is not a lot more than when they attack, we shoot arrows down on them. My question is, did that need explaining, really? I mean, like, what else was it going to be, really?
Well, she said to Robb that he is the best of the Knights of the Vale, and we've met the rest of the Knights of the Vale, so the bar was pretty low there.
but this story of what's going to happen if someone tries to invade the North through Moat Cailin makes Brynden Blackfish Tully shudder with dismay. Why? It doesn't sound that bad, really. And also, so here's, you've already touched on this, the sort of like slightly confusing geography of this. after Robb says that, Robb said that after defeating the Dondarrion's force at Mummer's Ford, Tywin has closed off the King's Road and is marching north to Harrenhal. Mummer's Ford is nowhere near the King's Road.
You'd have to go past east of Harrenhal to get to the King's Road.
King's Road, and then go north
and then go
the
north.
King's Road.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't quite understand that.
That's why I had the theory that Robb doesn't know that.
Yeah, Tywin was never at Mummer's Ford.
Yes,
he was always on the King's Road. Yeah,
exactly.
Mm. So news and notes. I think my brother gets mentioned on this pod quite a lot. He has always enjoyed the fact that our numbering sequence of our episodes is one out from the numbering of the chapter, creating a little bit of confusion.
It creates confusion for us too when we're putting the
all
show
the time,
together.
Yeah. All the time. And I think he thought that our 50th episode special was going to be the way we brought them back together again. But in fact, we didn't do that, and we disappointed him. So in response, he's made a video which we'll put a link to in the.
It's very funny. It's very funny. You know the show that the scene that is.
It's Mr. Bob. No, Mr. Show. Sorry, Mr. Show with Bob and David. Right, that's what it's called. Let me just get that right. Mr. Show. Yeah, Mr. Show with Bob and David, which has David Cross and I don't remember the other guy's name. Bob Odenkirk. Yeah, Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's his name.
Yeah, he does a fantastic job of mimicking this guy's exasperation.
Yeah, so there's a sketch in Mr. Show where the guy is hosting a television show which is a call-in show, but it's pre-recorded a week earlier. So if you're watching the show, you don't call in about what you're watching about, you call in about what's on next week's show. And this causes lots of confusion to the viewing customers.
And a lot of stress for the host. And
my brother Robb has spoofed that sketch very well.
Very well. Well done, Robb. Round of applause to Robb. That was very well done. So. I was laughing so hard. So we'll definitely share both the original and the fantastic remake of Robb.
Yes. I think Robb's really stands up. It's quite long. It's quite a few minutes to get
It's
through.
8.5 minutes.
8.5 minutes. But it stands up to rewatching because there's all kinds of funny Easter eggs in there. It's like full of good stuff.
That's fantastic.
It does make me kind of glad for coronavirus because that has given him too much time on his hands to do things like this. It must have taken him hours.
I know. I was thinking that while I was watching it. I was like,
I mean, he literally grows a beard.
It's good stuff. It really
It is good. Robb, I rarely compliment you because you don't deserve it, but this was very good.
And we've got a winner.
We do?
We have a giveaway winner.
Who is it?
Our winner, drum roll please, is Catherine.
Catherine?
Yeah, Catherine.
Hey, I know Catherine.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know Catherine, but I mean, we've corresponded with Catherine.
Yeah. Well, I did
good
it
for her.
I did it fair and square. I put all the names of all our contestants in a hat. I wrote them on little pieces of paper, put them in a hat, mixed them around, and reached in and pulled her name out. So congratulations, Catherine.
Congratulations, Catherine. So I guess we'll send her an email. She doesn't have to wait for this episode to learn this.
Correct, yes.
But again, as we've said before, we're willing to sign the box if she thinks that will increase the value of this thing.
If you don't want us to deface it, we won't do it.
Exactly.
Totally your call.
All right, come on, we've got to get to bed. Yeah. I mean, that sounded like a proposition which I did not intend. It's getting late.
The ghost is waiting for me up in my bedroom to throw some stuff in.
Let's conclude. So Kat finally gets to see one of her children.
Hey.
How nice.
Good job, Kat. Of course, she now passed up the opportunity to go see the other two children. She's going to head
Yeah.
south with Robb.
Yeah. But I guess it will help them get across the river at the Twins, and I guess I don't know if there's animosity between the North and River Run without her, but
Yeah.
hey, they're there to fight for them.
Right,
You
exactly.
think they'd be welcoming, yeah.
Yeah, and the bannermen of the North are understandably dismayed at the loss of Tyrion. I'm not sure he would have done they would have gotten exactly what they wanted from him, but he's better than nothing, which is now what they have.
Yeah.
So
they must be saying, you've dragged us into this war by kidnapping one of their family, and when they replied in kind, we managed to lose the one we had. So
great job there.
Thanks. So now we're fighting for absolutely no reason, but of course we have to now.
Right.
Half of us are in their clutches.
Yeah.
Kat seems like she's kind of interfering a little bit in Robb's decisions. He's made solid choices to this point. I think he said at the time when he was back in Winterfell that he didn't really know what he was doing. He was just hoped it was the right response. He was in charge.
Yeah, and it seems like he made the decisions she would have wanted him to make. She wanted him to come and fight. She didn't want him to come himself. She wanted him to stay back home. But everything else he's done is basically what she has said he has to do.
Catelyn Tully did not want her son to lead the army, but Ned Stark's son was always going to lead the army.
That's a good point. Well said. Well said.
Why is she going to River Run? I mean, I get it. She can help them cross the Twins, but, Bran and Rickon, they need her. Go home, woman.
Right. They're pretty all alone up there. And now we got Bran raising Rickon. And or maybe not. I don't know. Shaggy might be doing the heavy lifting there.
Rickon raising Cain.
Yeah. Her argument, I don't remember if we mentioned this or not in the summary, but her reason for going south is that her father may be dying. And
that's true.
She's gotten word that he's sick. She doesn't know how sick. And that her brother is being, besieged at River Run. Yeah. So she's got to go.
And her father, he's at River Run too, right?
He's at River Run too.
Yes, they're both at River Run, yeah.
Now, of course, she has Brynden, her uncle Brynden, who is a Tully. She could send him, in her stead and go north to Winterfell. But, I get it. She wants to see her dad, but it does make it tough that she's leaving those kids alone again, which is scary.
Yeah.
Alone and undefended. But being alone, not that big a deal, but they're alone and very undefended right now. Yeah, but I think you're unnecessarily worried. I think the war is here. Yeah,
Winterfell is far removed. They're safe back there.
Seems
anyway,
like it.
You can always reach us at ghost.harrenhall@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at @GhostHarrenhall, Facebook, Instagram, and now YouTube.
And if you like what we're doing, please leave a review on iTunes or anywhere else.
Yeah, just because you didn't win the Jon Snow Funko Pop doesn't mean you can't leave us a review. You could still do it for us. We'd appreciate it.
Exactly. Yes. And even if you don't want to take the time to leave a review, if you just swipe that finger over to 5 stars for a rating, that takes like less than a second. So,
Yeah, that'd be great.
We would really appreciate it.
We would. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.